Hi and welcome. Today I'm going to give you something that's a little bit different. It's actually my Secrets to Shiatsu course. But rather than how the course is usually laid out, with lots of different segments and lots of little lessons, with zoom ins and zoom outs and close ups, I'm going to just give you it in one continuous treatment, the way Shiatsu is supposed to be. Now, this is traditional Shiatsu, done on a futon, on the floor, fully clothed. I'm going to talk you through how to work in both prone and supine, so face up and face down. We're going to be looking at the back, we're going to be looking at the glutes, we're going to be looking at the legs, we're going to be looking at the arms, and we're even going to do a little work into the head and face. In this video, I'm going to be sharing lots and lots of valuable shiatsu techniques, so that whether you're just wanting to do it on your partner, you can follow along and do these treatments on your partner, or whether you're a therapist and you're looking to add a little bit to your tool belt, let's call it. This video is there for you, to help you. So let's dive in, shall we? Now you'll notice it's a couple of years ago, so I've not even got a goatee. I'm clean shaven for that. Anyway, let's get on with it, shall we? Hi and welcome to this Shiatsu course. Now, the first thing we want to learn to do in Shiatsu is we want to learn to connect with our client, to connect with the client's energy. A couple of things, firstly, about energy. When we're moving around, we want to be, most of the time, facing the client, right? So that way, our energy is in an outward field like so. If we're facing that way, doing something over here, technically his energy's over there, possibly there, which means we're only getting, our energy's only connecting partially with Daisy, or your client. Whereas if you're position like this, you're covering all of the client's energy, so your energy is connecting with them. And the thing is, with Shiatsu, even though it's a physical therapy, it's also an energetic therapy as well. And not just when we're connecting with the pressure points when we're working, but also our own energy field is connecting with our client's energy field. So we want to keep quite an awareness of our field, if you like. Now, that being said, when I connect with a client at the very beginning, I like to begin sat sideways on. And the way I'll sit is just sit on my knees like this, with my legs almost pressed against them, or even pressing against them. And then what you want to do is close your eyes and put a hand on what is known as your hara, which is your belly. Take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. At the beginning part, we just want to become aware of ourselves. So just be aware of yourself. Is anywhere aching? Are you holding any tension anywhere? And if you are, try and let go of that tension. And then the next step, we want to become aware of the room. What's in the room? The temperature of the room. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is there any external noise that could distract you? And then you want to become aware of your client that's laid on the futon at the side of you. As you want to bring your hand up above the client. And as you breathe out, just allow your hand to slowly sink towards your client. stopping to feel the energy force around your client. And slowly sinking through it. Becoming aware of your client's energy. Now once you connect with your client physically, just observe the breath for a moment or two. And if you can, almost sync up your breathing with their breathing. And then, once you've taken a minute to connect with your client, you just want to come around, and then we're going to begin the next step. Just a little word here. Once you've physically connected and you've got a hand on the client, while you're working, always try to keep a hand on the client, even if you're moving from one side to the other. Try and remain connected, because if you suddenly take both hands off like that, you're breaking that connection that you've just created. Now there will be times where you do need to disconnect, but if you can try and maintain that connection in your mind, it's not too bad. Okay? And like I said, as you're moving around the client, aim to be roughly in that position so that your energy field is connecting with theirs the maximum amount of time. Now, a technique I like to use, just once we've connected, to warm the client up and get them used to our touch, is called Kambiki, and it's just the art of rocking. It sort of allows the energy, lets the energy know that you're going to be working with them. It also helps calm the nervous system. It stimulates the spine, and all we're going to do is we're just going to be rocking the body. Now we start here at the sacrum, just the pad of his hand, and if you see that, all I'm doing is pressing against the sacrum and it's creating a rocking motion. Okay? And then if we pull back with his hand like that, you get a full rock. Bring in both hands, and suddenly you're rocking the hips. And then once you've got that momentum, if you just move up the spine, so you're either side of the spine, it'll just rock the body, helps to relax the client and calm the nervous system. It can take a little bit of practice, this, and some people are easier than others to rock, but it's all about just getting that momentum at the sacrum. And then from there, we're going to do some palming. Now, palming is one of the main skills, if you like, of Shiatsu. It's used to let the meridian know that you're coming, but it's also there to do treatment as well. And to begin with, all we're going to do is walk around the body just to get used to it. So all we're doing is we're just placing one hand and we're leaning, and that's all we're doing. And you're just going to walk around the body. Now the key thing is as you're doing it along the back, just don't put any pressure on the spine. And this is a really good way to just get used to a person's body. Just walk around. Give the arms a little squeeze, allow your hands to wrap around them. And the key thing is that whenever you're doing Shiatsu, you're not using any physical force, but instead you're moving from your hara, which is your belly, your centre, and then that way you never go in too deep to the point where the muscles tense up against you. You'll only go in as deep as the body allows. So you might find that as you go around the legs, you might just want to come up onto one leg. You might find you want to use both hands as you're walking around. Now, I want you to just do that, walking around with your hands, until you feel quite comfortable, and then we're going to look more in depth at palming. So once you've had a little wander around the body, just palming, we're now going to work down the side of the spine into the glutes, down the leg. We'll do it section at a time. So we'll do the back first, and we'll just, again, with the palming, right, you've got two options. You can either use the base of your palm there, or just here where your middle finger rolls round and it hits a point. That's heart protector 8. So you can use that, but for me I always find that almost a bit bouncy and it don't feel like I connect properly with that. So I like to use pads of my palm. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do it Zen Shiatsu wise. So one hand is going to remain stationary, the other hand is going to palm down, and we're going to palm down the side of the spine. So make sure that you feel the spine so you know where it is, and you're going to hit roughly 2 finger widths away from the spine. Okay, so place the first hand on the top, and then all you're going to do is put your hand there, and you're just going to come up onto your knees so that you're sinking, and then you're going to drop down. You're going to move your hand, and again you're going to come up, and then you're going to drop down, and move it down again, come up, and drop down, move down again, come up, and drop down. And you can do this 2 or 3 times, so we're going to do it again. This time I want you to try and sync your breathing with it. So you're going to breathe in as you come up, and then you're going to breathe out as you come down. Breathe in and down. And breathe in and then out. And then in. Now you might find that if you're particularly heavy and that's too much pressure for your client, rather than coming up like that every time, you can simply lean a little bit and just find what works well for you, like that. Again, there's no pressure going into it, I'm just leaning with my body. And once we palm down this side, we're then going to do some stretches. So we've got a couple of stretches that I like to do. So the first one is I like to stretch away the opposite side. Easy enough to do. Again, you find the spine, you place your hands on the opposite side of it, and as you come up, you lean away, and that will just stretch out the muscles and the fascia away from the spine. And again, there's zero force required. Just nice and steady. And then we can do some cross stretching. So what you want to do is you want to find the sacrum, the hips, with one hand, and you want to cross your arms over where the shoulder is. And as you come up, you're not putting any force on, but what will naturally happen is that you'll get that stretch effect across the body. And again, for the other side. And then we can do across the side of the body. Then we can do the side nearest to us. Chair. So, we then move on to using it as thumbs. Now, as thumbs are probably one of the most used techniques in Shiatsu. We use them to go into the pressure points. Now, when you're using your thumb, you use the pad of your thumb, you don't use the tip. So it's only the pad that you're using. And again, when you use it, it's very, very important that you're not pushing in. So you're not tensing your shoulder, you're not forcing it in. You're simply allowing that thumb to sink in. So again, we're going to be working down the same line as what we just did with the palming. And all you're going to do is you're going to have one arm listening and the other hand working. So find your position and come up, allow it to sink in. And then out. And you come up again. And just try and feel where it should go. If you find it's tight and it's not letting you in, then it's not letting you in. In which case, back off, be a little bit more gentle, be a bit more patient, maybe come back to it. Or if you find that your thumb really sinks in, hold that space. Allow the energy to come to your thumb. Again, you can do what I'm demonstrating there, where you place your thumb down and you come up. Or you can do it where you just lean into it a little bit, trying to keep your chest open and your crown open so that you're connecting with the universe at the same time. Or if you find that becomes a little bit difficult, sometimes I like to just come up onto one leg, and then you can simply gently rock backwards and forwards as you work down the meridian and into the pressure points. Now, once we've worked it 2 or 3 times, we're then going to do a little bit more traditional style. So we're going to work from directly above. Now, there's a number of seated positions you can do depending on basically your leg length and the leg length and the thickness of the client. So you can either come up with one leg, like I have, so I'm knelt on one leg with one leg up. And then again, we put our hands either side of the spine, and we palm down. Now, your other option, providing that your legs are long enough and your client is petite enough, is you can literally straddle them and work like this. However, because I've only got little legs, and without being rude to Daisy, she's got a big bottom, it doesn't really work for us because it looks a bit rude. So the other option you can also do is you can drop your knees onto your client's hamstrings, and this is a lot deeper way of working, and you can palm down again like this. Now, there is one more option. If you've got a particularly large client, you can literally just stand and lean. It all depends on the size of yourself and the size of your client. But for me and Daisy, it's best if I've just got one leg up, one leg down. And once we palm down and we get to the sacrum, we can then do what's called a sacrum squeeze. So if you imagine the sacrum like a triangle, you're going to just put your hands either side and you're just squeezing as you drop into it. Particularly good for lower back pain is this one. And then, again with the thumb work, but this time we're going to be doing 2 thumbs. So, either side of the spine, you just drop in, hold that, then with that. And you still do the thumb work directly over the sacrum. Just being cautious not to apply ridiculous amount of pressure. And again, we'd work that 2 or 3 times, and then at this point you've got a choice. You can either continue down the leg and move around that way, or you may want to do the back first, in which case we transition by simply moving over like so, and then that gives us access to do that side of the back. So once we've connected, we're going to do a technique called Kambiki. Now it's simply a rocking technique to rock the spine, but it's quite a nice way to connect with your client because it helps calm the nervous system and it helps prepare the body for the work you're going to do. Now to do it, all we're going to do is place the pad of his hand against the sacrum. So as you can see, as I push like that, and when I say push, I'm not pushing, I'm leaning in with my body. It already creates a rocking effect. Now if we then pull back with the fingers, you can see it rocks that side. So if we put them both in, we create a rocking. And then if we bring both hands in, you can see just how much the body begins to rock. And then we're simply moving his hand up the body in a wave-like, rhythmic manner to keep the body rocking. Now, it does take a little bit of practice, this, so give yourself time, practice it until it feels easy. And you may find that on some people it's easier than others. It depends. If somebody's really stiff, you might find it just takes a little bit of motion to get them moving. So it might take a little bit more effort, if you like. And then what I want to do is we're going to look at palming. Now palming is a technique that we use to both diagnose and treat someone. So we use it to sort of like prepare the body a little bit, prepare the muscles, prepare the fascia, prepare the energy as we feel along the meridian. But just by palming alone, it can do amazing things. And to begin with, I just want you palming wherever feels comfortable. So you're just going to go all over the body. And when I say palming, there's 2 ways you can palm. You can either palm from here, which is what I prefer to do, or you can palm from there, which is heart protectorate. So if that's the case, your pressure's going into there, or your pressure's going into more the heel of your hand. And again, I don't want you using physical force, right? So all we're going to do is we're going to put his hands on and we're going to come up. So we're coming up onto his knees, and as we come up onto our knees, you will see that the pressure of your body goes through your hands and your palming. And I just want you to take a minute or 2 to explore the body. Just avoid putting any pressure directly over the spine. And again, as you come around the joints, just be a little bit cautious to hold back a little bit with your weight. But just practice palming around the body, just so you feel comfortable with palming and touching another person. Because that's another thing, is that not many of us are used to touching someone else unless it's a family member or a partner, because it is quite an intimate thing. So just if you're working on a friend or a client or a colleague, just practice getting used to touching in a positive manner. And again, if you're going over the legs, just be careful of the knees. And you can come round and you can do it from the opposite side if you like as well. And just spend time doing that. Now once we've got used to actually touching a person and palming around the body, we're going to do a little bit more focused palming. So we're going to just be working essentially down the bladder meridian at the side of the spine, and we're going to be using what's known as a Zen Shiatsu technique of using the mother and child hand. And basically what I mean by that is one hand stays stationary and the other hand is going to work. And all we're doing, this hand stays still and this comes down. We couldn't do it the other way around because you're crossing your hara too much and it'll create more of a stretch more than an actual palming. So again, with this, you've got a few different things. If you put your hand in place, and then we're just going to come up, and then go down, up, and down, up again, and down, and up, down. Once you've done it once like that, let's bring your breath into it. So as you come up, you breathe in. As you breathe out, you go down. And up. And then down. And then up. And down. Again. You might find that coming up and down like that, you don't really feel like comfortable in doing that. You might just want to almost just lean into it a little bit. In which case you're just coming up a tiny bit, sinking in, then moving down. So once we've palmed down the meridian, I like to have a little stretch. So how we're going to do this, very similar to palming, but this time because we're going to be on the opposite side of the spine, as we come up, it pushes the muscles and the fascia away from the spine, allowing the spine to breathe a little. So again, put his hands in place, and then we come up, and it just stretches all the muscles and fascia away. And once we've done that a couple of times, we're then going to move into cross stretching. So, for a cross stretch, we place one hand on the hips, the other hand on the shoulder, and if you look how my hands are crossed, rather than me having to use any force, as I come up, it will naturally separate the muscles, the fascia and the tissues to create a stretch. So we're going to do it once that way, then we're going to the opposite side, and again like so. Now, once we've done palming and once we've done stretching, we want to move on to a little bit more detailed work of using the thumbs in the pressure points. So, when we're using his thumbs, we're not using the tip of his tongue, we're using the pad, which is just here. And we're not digging in like that. Again, we're placing them in position and then we're slowly sinking into them. So again, we're going to use one hand, just place it there. We're going to find the spine and then we're going to go roughly 2 finger widths to one side, place his thumb in position, and then we're just going to come up and we're going to sink in. Again, you can either come all the way up onto your knees, sink in, or you can just rock in a little bit. I just want you to move slowly down, feeling each point as you go in. And remember, don't press, but allow yourself to sink. Allow yourself to connect with that energy. Feel what's going on. If you find that the area is quite tight and it don't let you to go in very far, only go in as far as it'll let you. You could try and be a bit patient to see if you can sink in a bit deeper, or you can just simply move on and then come back to it. If you find an area is quite spongy and soft, sink into it and be patient, and you'll draw energy to that point. Now you'll notice that I'm only really working the section that is directly here in front of me, right? And that's because we're fairly level here. Now if I were to try and work the shoulders, it sort of slips away from me. So to work that bit, we want to come up near the top of the head. But we'll do that shortly. So once we've thumbed down, so once you want to palm down and thumb maybe 3 times. I'm going to show you some double-handed techniques. Now, when you're working above a client to do a 2-handed technique, again, you want to find the spine, hand either side it, and you simply palm down. Now, when it comes to how you position your own legs, there's a couple of different techniques you can use, and it all depends on both the height of yourself and the thickness of the client's body. Now, if you've got quite long legs and they're quite slim, like thin wise, you'll probably find the easiest way is just to straddle them, and then you can palm down the body like so. However, because I've got quite short legs and my client here, Daisy's got quite a big bottom, it kind of looks a little bit rude. So I like to come up onto one leg, and I will do this with the majority of the clients that I work with, and then we can achieve exactly the same thing. Another method you can try when in this position is to bring your knees behind the bottom, so you're kneeling on the hamstrings, and then you can work. This is a lot more powerful, and not every client will be able to handle it depending how much you weigh personally. So if you're going to do this, do so with caution. The other technique you can use, if you've got particularly little legs, or if you've got a particularly large client, is you can simply stand and bend over like so. Now, doing the thumb work from this angle is exactly the same really as what the palming is. Find the spine, and again, we don't want to start up here because look, we're angles off. So if we start roughly where your client's bra strap would be, and then either side of the spine, you simply work your way down. Keeping it fairly rhythmic. Remember, you're moving your body, you're not moving your arms. So, you're not using any force. You're just sinking into each pressure point. And with the thumb work, you go directly over the sacrum. Finishing just as you get to the glutes. And then we might just want to palm down again. And as we get to the glutes, we're going to just do a sacrum squeeze. So your sacrum's like a triangle. So if you just feel one side, feel the other, and just give it a little squeeze. But again, you're not using mass amount of force. You're just leaning into it and it'll just squeeze the sacrum. Now, from this point, you could continue working down the leg, or you could move over and do the other side. If you're going to come over and transition, all you want to do is keep one hand on, and then you transition, and then you're here to work that side. Right, so now we've done the back, we're going to go down the legs. So before we actually start palming the legs, first we want to work the glutes a little bit. So we're going to work the glutes with his elbow. But we're going to be using, we don't use the point of his elbow like that, because that can really hurt someone. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this part of his elbow here, more as forearm. And we're going to move around almost like a fan motion. So you're going to drop in, and all you're going to do is place your elbow in position, and then you're just going to hang there. That's all. And you're going to use your other arm resting on the client's back and the hand on the hip. It just helps a little bit. And you're just going to hang there for a minute or so. And then you're slowly going to move around the glute. Now, it's important that you work the glutes because the glutes are a very big muscle. They're the centre of your body, essentially. They're the powerhouse. They're what you need for walking, running, keeping you upright all day. And they're one of the biggest muscles of the body. Not only that, it's believed in Chinese medicine that we sit on our emotions, so we tend to store a lot of emotions in his glutes. And around the sacrum is actually an energetic reservoir where we store his energy. So if his glutes are tight, it will have a knock-on effect with everything else. Likewise, if his glutes are tight, it's likely going to cause lower back pain. And you'll notice, as I'm moving, I'm not just staying stationary and then stationary, but I'm rolling my hand. So by turning my hand, it will have a different effect on the glutes as I'm working. And then we're going to palm down essentially what is the bladder meridian, which is roughly centre all the way down the leg into the heel, and then it finishes at the little toe. So we're going to first of all palm. Now I want to give you a word of warning about palming technique on the thigh, and the reason being is the most comfortable position, and I'll demonstrate it down here, is to have your hand like that. However, and I've seen many shiatsu therapists have the hand in that position so that the fingers are on the inside of the thigh, and they'll do that at the top of the thigh. Now, if you're a man doing that to a woman, you may find that you get a slap. If you're a woman doing it to a man, you might find yourself in a tricky situation. And yet, for whatever reason, I've seen people doing it countless times, and this is trained therapists. So don't have your hand in that position when you're at the top of the leg, because it's a little bit wrong. Instead, all you have to do is turn your hand so it faces down the leg, like so. Or you could turn your hand all the way around so your fingers are at the other side of the leg. So we're just gonna, one hand on the sacrum, the other hand just here, and we're just palming down the centre. And again, all we're doing is trying to sink in. We're not using any real force. As we get to the knee, we ease our pressure a little bit, and then again we're working down the calf. And again with the calf, you probably don't want as much pressure on. And then we're just going to squeeze the foot, going around the edge of the foot there. You might find that you need to move your arm at this point. And again, you palm down the leg 3 times. Now, when you're doing it, depending on the length of your client, and basically the wingspan of your arms and how comfortable you are, you could either keep one hand there and work all the way down, like so, or as you move down, so we're coming down the hamstring again, you might find that before your hand extends too much, that you just shimmy over a little bit, and then you're less likely to lose your balance. And then once we've palmed, and again we want to do palming at least 3 times, we're then going to do thumb work. So again, with his thumb, right, because the easy thing to do is to put your thumb in and then slide your hands on the inside. So you could either do it with an open with a fist so that you're not going in. You could arch it around like that. Personally, when I'm doing the thumb work, I like to get my fingers at this side of the thigh, and it's just there for support really. And again, we're going straight down, and you'll find with the hamstring you can drop in quite a bit deeper than you can when you get to the calf. So once you get here, you can bring your hand more into a natural position of being inside. And then again, really light over the knee. And then we're just going to go straight down the calf. You'll notice that I've adopted a slightly different position with the calf. I don't want to be coming up and putting too much force in there. Okay. And when we come to the foot, I'd move down a little bit, because we're going to first of all just work around the edge of the foot, and you're working all the way to the little toe. And again, when we're doing the thumb work down the leg, we want to do that roughly 3 times. Once we've palmed and we've thumbed down, we want to give the legs a little bit of a stretch. So we're going to do what's known as a bit of a 3-way stretch. So hand on the sacrum, and you're just stretching straight to the bum. This will give the quad a really good stretch. Only take it to as far as you can feel it can go. Don't push it beyond where it wants. Then we're going to bring it out towards the opposite bum cheek. Again, just hold that stretch, but feel where it's willing to go. And then we're going to bring it out and around, more towards us and to the side of the glute. Now from there, we're going to come down and we're just going to place his knee underneath their leg. And then this way, we can just do some nice rotational work along the Achilles heel. And all we're doing, you're getting his thumb, 2 fingers either side, gently pinching and rotating. And then we'd want to just bring the leg up, and you can just stretch out the ankle a little bit. Do some, in fact, probably find the ankle rotation, you're better just leant against your leg a little bit. And then when we're transitioning from this side to the other, we can simply put one leg up, put the other leg up, create a nice stretch there, both legs, and then we can place one leg down, place the other leg down, and then we're back here to begin working down the glutes and down the leg. And then once we've done that, and we've worked both legs, we might want to finish with a little bit of doing. Now, to do some doing on the feet, we're just using his hands there to just drum. The key to this is just to keep it nice and relaxed. In fact, I want to add something into that. We're going to be working down the leg. Before we work down the leg, we're going to first hit the glutes. And to hit the glutes, we're best off using his elbow. Now, the way we want to do it is we don't want to use the point of his elbow here, because that can be quite painful. We want to keep his elbow quite relaxed, and we're using more the first part of his forearm here. And we're going to basically go out in like a fan-like motion around the glutes. So we're going to start here, just below the hip. And you'll notice that all I'm doing is I'm just leaning on my client. So they're just taking my body weight My elbow is going into the glutes, and we're just going to hold that position. This arm here is just for support, so it's resting against the back and holding onto the hip. And then we're just going to move around. And you'll notice, as I move around, I'm turning my wrist, turning my hand. And by just doing that little movement, it'll have a different effect on the glute. It's basically having like a twist motion on the glute. So it's like kneading the glute without physically having to do any hard work. And there's a few reasons why we want to work the glutes. Firstly, they're the biggest muscle of the body. And they take a lot of hammer from standing, walking, and everyday life. And if his glutes get tight, it does tend to give us lower back problems. So don't be afraid to work the glutes. Always make sure they're included in your treatment. Not only that, from a Chinese point of view, it's believed that we sit on his emotions, so we can hold on to things here. So it can be a good way of helping to release them emotions that we've been sat on for a long time. And then thirdly, the sacrum acts as an energy reservoir. So if there's any stagnant energy trapped here, by working the glutes, it can just help free it up and get that energy moving around the body. Okay, so next we're going to be working down the bladder meridian. And the bladder meridian is going straight down. The bladder meridian is going straight down the hamstring, straight down the calf, and then straight down the side of the foot all the way to the little toe. So first of all, we're going to palm it. Now, before we begin palming it, I want to just give a word of caution. The natural thing when we're palming is to have his hands that way. And I've seen a lot of therapists do the entire thigh that way. But if you've got your hands, your fingers in that position at the top of the thigh, then you could get yourself into a little bit of bother. If a woman is doing it on a guy, then she might be in bother because he might enjoy it too much. But on a woman, if a guy's doing it, you might end up getting a slap around the face. And I've seen many therapists do that, both that are training in Shiatsu and those that are already trained. There's a simple solution. Just turn your hand slightly. So instead of having your hand in that position, turn it so that either your fingers are facing down the leg, or do a full turn and have it so that your fingers are fit on the other side of the leg. Personally, when palming, I like it so they're going down the leg. And then all we need to do is go down a couple of times, just gently sinking in, and then we can bring his hand back to a more neutral position. And then as we get to the knee, just really be gentle, no pressure there, just lightly connect with it. And then again, we're working down the calf, just palming away, all the way down the calf. And then we're just going to squeeze around the foot. Now, you may have noticed there that I was slightly overstretching, and that might lose my balance. And here's the thing, if you've got a particularly long wingspan, as in the length of your arms, or your client's got particularly short legs, you can do the full length in one go. But if not, a better idea would be to palm, say, the hamstring, and then once you get to the knee, bring the other hand down and simply slide down a little bit, and then we can palm down the calf. And squeeze around the foot, down towards the little toe. Okay, and again, you want to do this 2 to 3 times before we begin thumb work. So again, we're going straight down in a line. We're using his thumb this time. And remember, up top, we want to have his hand turned outwards. So I prefer, you could either go for that technique, you could go for a fist, but personally I prefer just to rest my fingers on the outside of the leg and then just sink in. And you'll find with the hamstring you can sink in quite deep. And again, we want to be aiming to roughly follow a straight line, straight down the centre. And then again, when we get to the knee, just be gentle, gently connect, slide on down, and you'll notice that my legs change position. This is purely because I don't want to put as much force and pressure into the thumb and into the calf, because the calf can be quite a sensitive area. So we come down, and then we'll just follow it around with his thumb all the way down, and we connect with the outside of the little toe. Now, once you've thumbed down 3 times, we're then going to just do a little stretch for the leg. It's a little 3-way stretch. So again, hand on the sacrum, stretch the quad that way, straight towards the bum. Then the second one, we're going to stretch it toward the opposite glute. Only take the stretch as far as the leg is willing to go. Then bring it around to the side of the glute. Brilliant. And then from there, we're just going to slide down and we're going to rest the foot on the knee, on his leg. And we're going to do some Achilles heel rotations. So we're going to be making like a pincher like move on the Achilles heel, and then we're just rotating. Can feel really good just to loosen this up. It can be quite tight on a lot of people, so it's well worth the effort to work. And then from there, we're just going to do a few stretches. So all I'm doing is pushing down on the foot, just to stretch it out a little bit, followed by some rotations. And then from there, as you transition to the opposite side, all you need to do is lift one leg up, followed by the other. Give it a little stretch, and then you can lay them down, and then you're straight back up here to continue working down the opposite leg. Okay, great. That'll do for that. So again, if we're working from this position, we'd want to do the connection exercise we did in the previous video, where we slowly breathe and connect with the hara. However, as we've already connected, we don't really need to do that. But we'll just take a minute or so just to feel the breathing and make sure we're still connected. Now in this video, in this lesson we're going to just be palming down the hand, down the arm and into the hand. We're going to do a little bit of work around the neck and the head before coming down the opposite arm, and then we're going to do some work into the legs. So we're going to be roughly following on this arm the lung meridian, but we don't have to worry about too much by being perfect. So we want to just take the arm, give it a little shake just to loosen it up, prepare the arm, and then we're going to do what's called the three-way stretch. So first, we want to put his hand on the chest, and you're just stretching the hand up above the head. Then we're coming out to the side, and then we're bringing the hand down. And then again up, out to the side, and then more towards you, just there. Okay, so again with the palming, exactly the same, but we're going to have his hand on the shoulder, and then the other hand is going to work down the arm. Now the main difference between the arm and the back, for instance, is because the arm is rounded, you want to let your hand wrap around as you're palming. So rather than just being flat, like it might be on the back, just allow it to wrap around. So again, one hand just holding, and we're just going to palm down the arm. We're going along the inside of the arm. As you see, the arm is face up, and we're just going down the inside of where roughly the lung meridian would be, all the way to the thumb. Again, you come up, just lean into it. So we just want to get the arm, just relax it, and then we're going to take it into a three-way stretch. So we stretch up, we stretch to the side, and then we bring it down, and we stretch downwards. So again, up to the top, more of a heart stretch. Then we're stretching the heart protector. And then we're stretching more of the lung, just there. So we're going to work roughly the lung meridian. And the lung meridian actually starts just underneath the collarbone, about midway down. You've got lung 1, then lung 2, and it comes over the arm, and it goes around the bicep, down the forearm, into the thumb, finishing on the inside of the thumb just there. Okay, so we're going to palm it, so we're connecting. By having his palm on the chest there, we're connecting with lung 1. And we're simply going to palm down, aiming to go roughly down that line there. And remember, as we're palming down, allow the hand to almost wrap around their arm. Nice and steady. Come into the thumb, just give the thumb a squeeze, and then just hold lung 11 at the end. Now, as we're only just practicing the basics, it doesn't matter if you don't get this perfectly. It's just a case of learning to palm down the arm. Again, as I've mentioned before, 3 is kind of the magic number that you want to be aiming for with palming and thumbing. And once you've palmed 3 times, You're then going to come down with the thumb. And you're just working nice and gently down this line, aiming to connect with the energy. Now, if this course does well, I do intend doing a few courses on the different meridians, where I will go into a lot more detail of meridian location and what the different points do, as well as the theory side of things. But for now, we're just practicing. So you'll notice I've gone nice and steady, straight down that line, all the way to the end of the meridian. Then we could give this client a little hand massage. So dead easy to do this. You put your little finger, wrap it around where the thumb is, little finger with a little finger, open the palm up using your fingers, and you're just wiping away. So you're soothing the hand. And this is particularly good for calming the heart, soothing the client. Very good for anyone who's suffering any kind of anxiety, just to do that. And then we're going to just work these pressure points. So here you go, 1, 2. And again, straight down the hand. And once you spend a couple of minutes doing that, we just take each finger, rotate, gently pull. You're not aiming to crack the fingers. Just give each one a gentle stretch. And if you notice, while I'm doing this, I'm holding this point here, which is really good to calm the heart and ease anxiety. And then from there, we're then going to move around the body in order to do some catwalking and also do some neck work. From here, we're going to move around to the head. So all we're going to do is we're just going to shuffle around, trying to maintain that connection. And then we're going to do some catwalking on this client's chest. So again, just as we talked about on the thigh, it's important to turn your hand around. I have seen people doing it like this. Obviously you're doing that, you're essentially giving someone a breast massage. We're not doing that, so if we turn his hands round, and then you're just doing what cats do, you're just poddling from one side to the other. And this is just catwalking. Really good to open up the chest and ease any tensions. Then from there we can come down to do some head and neck work. So all we're going to do with this is all we're going to do with your client's head is just gently stroke the forehead to create some relaxation. And then you remember before we were working on the bladder line on the opposite side. Well, it actually starts here. So we're just going to connect with that while we're here. So to do that, we're just going to take 2 fingers, lap them over the top of each other, and just here where the eyebrow ends, and it sort of dips in a little bit, that's bladder 1. So we're just going to hold that point. It's a very good point this for headaches and sinus pain. And then from there, once we held that for a moment or two, we're going to work either side of the bladder line. So we're going in this direction here. So from either side. Straight down. Over that head. And then we're going to just do a little bit of a neck stretch. So if you just hand on the head and you rotate the head to one side, then you can slide a hand under, bring the head back, and then what we're doing is we're scooping. So you're placing one hand under and then you're sliding back, and as the one hand gets to the skull, you bring the other hand under and you begin the process again. And if you find that your client is helping you a little bit, just tap them on the head and suddenly the head relaxes and becomes 10 times heavier, which will then make the stretching, the wave-like stretching, easier. So if you notice how I wrap my finger around, I slide up as it gets to the skull, place another hand underneath, and again do exactly the same thing. And then from here, you might want to just get your client's head and you're doing some little rotations underneath the neck. So where the neck meets the skull, you'll find there's often quite a lot of tight muscles where they connect. So just using the tips of your fingers, just rotate. And what I'm doing is I'm just doing that motion with 3 fingers. So you can see it, I'll turn the head. So all I'm doing is that motion. But I'm doing it with both hands at once. And that's why it looks like my client's head is bobbling about a bit. It's incredibly relaxing, it's very soothing. Particularly good if you're suffering from shoulder pain, neck pain, or migraines or headaches. And then from here, we're going to just do a bit of a big stretch. So again, you want to come up, potentially do a little bit more catwalking, and then you want to reach and you want to grab one arm and bring it back. And then you want to reach and grab the other arm. Now I want to give you another cautionary thing here, is when you're grabbing the arms, only go for one at a time. Last year I watched a therapist working on a friend of mine and they went to grab both arms at once, which means if you're reaching forward and you're grabbing both arms, you're almost putting your groin in your client's face, which isn't going to be very nice for the person laying there. So go for one arm, bring it back, second arm to the side. Now once we've got the arm here, you might find that just placing them on your knees, on your own thighs, and leaning back is sufficient to stretch them. But if you want to level up this stretch, if you get up onto your knees and then you place your hands on your own knees, hold on to their hands, and then you lean back, then the stretch intensifies. Likewise, you can then lean to one side and another, and it'll just help stretch them lats out a little bit more. And then when we've done stretching, bring one hand down and then the other, and then we move around again to the opposite side to palm down the arm that you've not currently done. So once we've come around this side and we've palmed down the arm, so we've done some palming down the arm, and we'll have done some thumb work, we'll have done the three-way stretch again. So you've done everything that you've done on the other side. We then might just stretch out the hips, ready for us to then begin working down the legs. So how we do it, a little bit similar to the cross stretches on the other side, but I find with the shape of a person's body, the cross stretches over the top don't always work. So we're just going to keep it like this. But we're still doing a cross stretch, but this time you've got to maybe put a little bit of effort into getting that side with that cross stretch. And all you're doing is you're placing your hand into the hip, into the shoulder, and you're just stretching. And then we're going to do the same this way. Bring his arm back round there. And then it can be quite nice just to do the hips, just doing some gentle rocking, just to get the hips moving. We're going to work down the legs, and we're going to follow roughly where the stomach meridian is, going all the way down. And basically, if you imagine that the leg is a box, we're going into the corner, so we're going in there, right? And again, you've got a few different options. So normally you'd have one hand resting on the belly, the hara, and then again we're going to palm down, obviously being the top of the leg. We're going to have his hand angled suitably, and then we're just going to come down, gently palming down the leg. And then we might want to move his hand along, so we can then just, and when you get down here, you want to avoid the bone. Again, you're still going in just behind the bone at diagonal angle. Allow your hands to wrap around the leg. Of course, we're following the stomach. We might as well work it all the way to the end of the stomach meridian, which if we get his big toe, then get the next toe, and it's just on the inside where it finishes. So we're just going to follow that, squeezing the toe. So again, with this, if you've got massively long arms, you may find that you can go all the way down in one go, depending on the length of your arms and obviously the length of your client's legs. But you'll probably find that you lose balance a little bit, and therefore your energy won't be as well connected. So for me, I'll palm down, sinking gently into the meridian and the energy. And then when I get to the knee, I'll just shimmy along so I can palm down, keep working all the way to the end of the foot. Now when you come to the knee, you don't want to put any pressure on or palm it, but what you might want to do is you might just want to hold it. So you might want to hold either side of it. You may want to hold it like so, just give it a little bit of side pressure, just to encourage it to heal if there's any issues going on there. And then once we've palmed down the leg, we're going to work with thumb again. So again, try and keep your hand pointing downwards at the top of the thigh, and with the thumb you can sink in quite deep, just feeling each pressure point. Just take your time with it, nice and steady. And again, when you get to the lower part of the leg, you just want to come up, shimmy down a little bit so that you're keeping that same distance. Now, once we've palmed and we've thumbed down 3 times, it's nice to do a little bit of hip work. So we're going to just do some rotations. So what you want to do is you just want to bring your leg up, knee to the knee, and you're just doing little hip rotations. You might find that if you start off nice and steady, you might then want to build it into larger ones. But you really want to be feeling what's going on your client's hip. And if it feels like sticky, like it don't want to move, just make the movement smaller. If you find that you've got a lot of movement, take them out. But try and support the knee against your own leg as much as possible. And then from there, we're going to do a 3-way stretch. So we're going to stretch first towards the body, a straight line. These stretches are really good for the glutes. So we're stretching slightly across to the opposite shoulder, and then we're bringing the leg out to the side. Fantastic. And then from there, we're going to grab the leg, we're going to lean back a little bit. It just stretches the leg, stretches the hip, and then we can slide back, place the foot against your belly, hand underneath the foot, hand on top of the foot, and then as you lean forward, it's stretching out the Achilles heel, it's stretching out the foot, stretching out all the fascia, and then we'll lean back, get another stretch, and we're just going to go forward and back, forward and back. And then what you can then do from here is we're going to do a rotation. So we're going to go outwards. So we're going to go out and then in. Out and then in. You're just keeping the foot against your belly. You rotate around. Now as we move to the other leg, personally, I like to start off then with the stretches. So we'll start off with a foot, forward and back, forward, back. Then we're doing the rotation round again. Okay. And then from there, we'd move up the side of the body so that we can then begin palming and thumbing down that leg. You place the client's foot against your belly. You put a hand underneath, hand on top, and then you go forward, you lean back, you move yourself forward, and you lean back. Really good for stretching out the feet, but also good for the hips, good for the fascia. If you notice as I'm doing this, my client Daisy, all the body's moving almost like a wave, and then we're going to rotate outwards. And then what I do before moving on to the palming and thumbing of the other leg, I'd just switch over, and again I'd do this side, forward and back, forward and back, and then again around. Okay, and then from there we can then move outside of the body to palm and thumb this side of the leg, and then do the stretches before we finish up by disconnecting. Once we've worked both legs, we've palmed 3 times, we've done thumbing 3 times, we've done the stretches, then we come to the end of our session. And just like at the beginning of our session, we want to connect, now we want to disconnect. So ideally, you'll still be connected to your client at this point, right? And then we're going to disconnect. So you want to once again get close, and you can either do it this way or you can turn to the side. But for the purposes of this, I'll do it like this. And I'm just going to have my hand on a belly, but you could be at her feet, a head, or your client's lower back, depending where you decide to start and finish. Then I'm going to take a deep breath in. Give myself a minute, and then on the next deep breath in, I'm going to begin slowly moving my hands upwards. The key to this is you take your time. And when we feel the difference in the air, we're going to bring his hands out, so we're now out of their energy field. We bring his hands up. We create a little prayer position, and we simply just say, thank you. And we're thanking the client, and we're thanking their energy for allowing us to work in their field. And it's very important that we do something, either that or something else, to disconnect the energy from the client so that we don't walk around all day still being connected. I hope you enjoyed this course, and I hope you'll leave a nice review and you'll look forward to doing future courses with me. Shiatsu Shane, thank you. Right, now, so, did you enjoy it? Did you find it useful? Are any of them tools and techniques that I've shown you, are you going to use them? What's your favourite? Let me know in the comments below. Now, like I said, this used to be for sale on my website, but I'm moving. I've got new plans for 2026, but it's still for sale on Udemy, and you can pick it up for probably between $15 and $30, whatever Udemy sells it for. And that way, if you want to do that, you can see some close-ups of me working. There's also additional content. There's like how to do a seated massage, and I'm not sure if I added how to do a shiatsu facial. Can't quite remember, but I will drop the link to that below. Now, if you'd like to continue learning from me, I am building up a little community, an online community for massage therapists and people who just want to learn either massage or shiatsu. And we're going to be looking at not just massage, but the business side of things. So if that's something that interests you, check out the link below. I am going to leave a link to that community in the description. That's all for now, everyone. Goodbye.